оглядываясь на богатую историю хоккея,
porteur d'une riche tradition.
With our hockey history so rich.
И зная, что у этой игры прекрасное будущее,
Dans un sport que l'avenir transforme,
And the future of the game evolving.
мы возвращаемся на арену,
nous voici de retour à l'endroit même.
We return to the arena
где все началось 30 лет тому назад.
Où tout a commencé, voilà 30 ans.
where it all began 30 years ago.
Ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, dames et господа, welcome to the Team Canada Luncheon, and welcome to the Luzhniki Sports Palace, home to some of the most exciting hockey ever played. His Excellency Vladimir Putin, President of the Russian Federation, and the Right Honourable Jean Chrétien, Prime Minister of Canada. We are honored to have with us today some of the hockey legends from the now famous 1972 series. Representing Canada, représentant le Canada, Canada представляют Yvan Cornoyer, Serge Savard, Rod Seeley, and Senator Frank Mahovny. Representing Russia, représentant la Russie, Россию представляют Alexander Maltsev, Boris Mikhailov, Alexander Pavlovich Agulin, Vladimir Shadov. I now invite Prime Minister Jean Chrétien and President Vladimir Putin to join these hockey legends on stage. In the spirit of the hockey traditions between our two countries, I now invite our leaders to exchange the sweaters of our 2002 Olympic hockey teams.
Будьте любезны.
We'll start with Вячеслава Мисина.
Легендарный игрок, который когда-то играл клюшкой с 2 охватами и, между прочим, забил 4 шайбы в той самой встрече.
He is a legend because he played the hockey stick with 2 holes and he scored a number of times.
Товарищ Юрий Иванович Блинов. Ждем на сцене человека, который так здорово играл в футбол, что маршал Гречка все-таки посоветовал идти в хоккей. Юрий Иванович, мы много выиграли благодаря ему.
He played football, which you call soccer, so well that the advice to him was don't play hockey.
Александр Сергеевич Волчков. Мы ждем его на сцене.
Alexander Volchkov.
Канадские журналисты думали, что он агент КГБ. Так суров он был тогда, в 1972 году.
And the Canadian journalists considered him to be one of the KGB members because he was so stern-looking.
Александр Владимирович Гусев. Мы ждем его на сцене.
Alexander Gusev.
Александр Владимирович. Александр Владимирович, будьте любезны.
Alexander Gusev.
Еще одна наша легенда. Конечно, Александр Владимирович, давайте поаплодируем. Номер 2 нашей команды.
He was also part of the team.
Евгений Владимирович Зимин, автор первой шайбы сборной Советского Союза и замечательный телевизионный комментатор.
He was scored the first goal by the Russian side, and he was a wonderful commentator.
Мы ждем Юрия Васильевича Лебедева.
Знаменитая
тройка Лебедев, Алиса Бугунов, вот они.
And he is part of the very famous threesome.
Владимир Яковлевич Лученко.
Vladimir Lutchenko.
4 шайбы на призе известен шведом, как защитник. Это было что-то невероятное.
He scored 4 goals to the Swedish team, and that was incredible.
Юрий Евгеньевич Ляпкин.
Yuri Lapkin.
Втроем они защищались против чешской команды в 1976 году. Это было что-то невероятное. 2 минуты удивительного хоккея в его исполнении.
The 3 of them defended their part of the field from the Czech hockey team, and that was incredible.
Мы ждем Есенина советского хоккея Александра Николаевича Мальцева. Так его называл Владимир Тарасов.
Maltsev, who was called by Canadians the poet of the Soviet hockey.
Александр Акимович Мартынюк.
Alexander Martinyuk.
8 шайб в ворота сборной ФНГ на чемпионате мира 1973 года. Феноменальное достижение.
Scored 8 in the World Championship of 1973. That's phenomenal.
Лучший бомбардир в истории первенства Советского Союза и большая легенда Борис Петрович Михайлов.
The best scoring forward in the history of the Soviet hockey, Boris Mikhailov.
Конечно, Борис Петрович, вам все можно.
Хочу поздороваться с Кэшманом, самым противным игроком сборной Канады.
I want to say hello to Cashman, the nastiest player in Team Canada.
When I played in the National Hockey League, one of my hardest rivals and I become best friends. In this series, go ahead.
Ну, на самом деле, вот мы играли друг против друга, но потом мы стали лучшими друзьями.
I want this guy to become my best friend.
И я хочу, чтобы он тоже стал вообще моим лучшим другом, и был моим лучшим другом.
Борис Петрович Михайлов, Владимир Кэшман. А мы приглашаем на сцену Александра Константиновича Пашкова, еще одного великолепного комментатора, большого хоккеиста. Человек, который умудрился сыграть в 4 московских командах. Это уникальное достижение.
Alexander Pashkov, who also became a commentator, and he is a legendary hockey player as well.
Вячеслав Старшинов.
Вячеслав Старшинов.
Да, мы ему обязательно передадим. Тот перстень, который сделали для легенды, для 9-кратного чемпиона мира подряд, тогда все это выигралось, что-то невероятное. Владимир Николаевич Шадрин.
He's not here, but we'll give him the secret ring.
Человек, который...
Vladimir Shadrin.
Множество японских сердец разбить в том числе, играя там.
And he is the guy who has multiple scores.
Конечно.
In his book in Japan.
Владимир Николаевич Шадрин. Юрий Григорьевич Шаталов, мы ждем.
Юрий Шаталов.
Легенда советского хоккея, крылья Советов, Омска.
Another legend of the Soviet hockey, the крылья Советов, Тима Омск.
Давайте поприветствуем лучшего игрока той серии, Александр Сергеевич Якушев.
And the best player of the series, Alexander Yakushev.
И Александр Сергеевич Якушев приветствует лучшего вратаря Владислава Александровича Третьяка.
Alexander Yalushev welcomes the best goalkeeper.
Спасибо большое. Давайте. Да, тоже к центру льда, и мы сделаем большую фотографию сборной Советского Союза.
So let's group together. Let's group together for another picture of Team USSR. So this is Team USSR.
Так. Сборная Советского Союза, дамы и господа, Великий 72-й.
This is Team USSR 1972, ladies and gentlemen.
Совместная фотография.
And now the joint photographs of Team Canada and Team USSR, the series of 1972.
Спасибо большое. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Просим занять свои места, потому что еще церемония у нас продолжается. Дамы и господа.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats because we continue with our ceremony.
Нет, еще не закончили, поэтому, пожалуйста, коллеги, тоже пока еще не суетитесь.
We have not finished yet. Dear colleagues, please start with the interviews later.
Да, Елена Ильич, еще продолжаем церемонию.
We continue the ceremony.
Да, Владислав Александрович уже сказал очень важно. Владислав Александрович.
Добрый вечер, дорогие друзья. Он действительно добрый, потому что здесь находятся супер люди, легендарные личности команды Канады, Советского Союза, которые покорили весь мир.
Good evening, dear friends. Good evening, dear guests. It's really a very good evening because here in this hall we have the super players, the superheroes on the Canadian side and the superheroes from the Soviet Union, the Russian side, who back then, 45 years ago, conquered the world.
45 лет тому назад команда Канады представляла канадский хоккей. 45 лет тому назад мы представляли европейский хоккей. Два разных стиля играть в хоккей. И как результат сегодня в национальной хоккейной лиге у нас играет больше европейский хоккей.
45 years ago, the Canadian team, Team Canada, represented Canadian hockey style. The Soviet, the Russian team, represented European style. That was 45 years ago. As a result, nowadays, all the hockey players are playing more sort of like European style hockey.
Я думаю, эти игры будут жить вечно, насколько будет вечен Его Величество хоккей.
I think that the memory of these games will last forever. As long as hockey lives, the memory of these games will live.
И от имени Федерации хоккея я хотел приветствовать обе команды, пожелать вам здоровья, счастья, дальнейших успехов.
On behalf of the Russian Federation of Hockey, I want to welcome both teams here and I wish you good luck, happiness and be good.
Ну и я хочу, чтобы мы вспомнили тех хоккеистов, которые сегодня нет с нами. Из команды Канады, это 6 человек, 11 человек из нашей команды, которые сегодня вместе с нами только на панелях которые выходили с нами на лед. Я прошу, чтобы вы...
At what point did you realize during the series that this was really something that was going to be this big as it's become?
How long did it take? Pat, did you know?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. No, really. Well, okay, that's a good point. What about the atmosphere / attitude you fellas had, or the whole team had, not just before game one and after game one? Was that an eye opener?
I think that the hockey sticks that they used had Montreal Surprise written on it. So they must, I don't know what they knew that we didn't know, but apparently they knew something. So I would think after the first game, we had to stop and think about where we went wrong and were we as good as what we were told we were. And we were told we were pretty good, and they weren't very good, but we found out differently.
I think they were convinced that they were coming to beat us. You know, and it was very easy for them because nobody expected them to win. And if they do, they used to say, we came here to learn, but they had some pretty good hockey players. Some of them one of the best in the world, and playing on the big surface. And personally, I really enjoy playing on the big surface, and I think our rink, especially in those years, playing in Boston and Chicago, was so small. Now we got all the rink standard, but playing on the Olympic surface, you need better players, you need more mobility, and that's why you have the European player coming here, and they're always the best player on the ice most of the time, because they played on a big surface.
It's that international, Canada, Russia. It was something I don't think it'll ever happen again. There's too many Russians playing over here now. We'll never get over, that was something very, very special.
I've been quite a few cups as a player, and I've been on two cups as a general manager in Montreal, and I don't think you can elevate yourself emotionally as high as this series. To me, it's the greatest event in my career. It's the 72 series.
We had a question right here, sir, yes.
Yeah, I think the people in Canada were, as they found out later, pretty surprised with the antics that the Soviets pulled with Joel Esposito, like pulling his room at 3 in the morning. Did they specifically pick on him, or did it happen to everybody in all the rooms, and what other antics did they...
Yeah, I had calls during the middle of the night. They believe they stole our steaks, stole our milk.
I had called in New York too.
Stole our beer. Yeah. They were masters of delay. You know, you arrive at the airport there, and they come on the plane and see what valuables you have to list everything you've got. So you got to wait there. Then you got to go wait for your luggage. They were masters of making you wait. Passports, yeah, the whole thing. Yeah.
Yes.
We always seem to display a little more adrenaline and intensity, and I think that kind of lifts our game up a little higher than I see theirs. Do you kind of think that helps? Like, I don't really see that from the Russians, right? And a lot of Europeans. They just don't seem to have the same level of adrenaline or intensity when it comes to a crucial situation. I don't know what you guys thought.
The good old Canadian enthusiasm compared to you know. Could you sense it, Bill? Could you sense that on the ice?
I found the Russians playing against was very monotone. You know, there was certain things happened on the ice. You know, if you did that to a Canadian player, wow, you'd have an elbow in your face in a minute. But I've heard that they used to practice those type of things. Tarasov, who was an originator of their game, used to have face-offs, and he'd drop a puck and then elbow them in the face and learn to control themselves. So I don't know how true that is, but I found them very unemotional. They're just very bland faces a lot of time.
But I would think that would take away from your game. I would think the way we play...
Take away from our game, sure.
Because we get really into it.
Yeah.
I thought it was about game 6 or 7 before we actually saw their face. We were always looking at their back.
It has been mentioned the Canadian press chose the boys as the team of the century. I call on now the president of Canadian Press, Eric Morrison. Eric.
Thanks, Dick. Good morning. This morning I want to tell you about a poll that we did that doesn't need a week's worth of recounting, because these guys were the runaway favorites in that poll. I'll give you a little bit of background on it, not too much. Each year, for almost half a century, the Canadian press has polled all the newspaper and radio, TV sports editors across Canada for their choice of male, female athlete, and team of the year, and the newsmaker of the year on the news side. We do this, of course, because we're unique in the country. We send news, sports, pictures, audio to 100 dailies, 650 radio, TV stations, and now the internet. So this last year, at the end of the millennium, we took advantage of those relationships to ask them to select a team of the century. Now in Canada, it's no surprise that a hockey team won. It could have been the Oilers of the 80s or the Canadiens of the 70s, or for that matter, the 50s, and all of them got votes. But there was really no doubt. More than half of those surveyed chose Team Canada of 72, and they had a long list to choose from. So I guess that's not a surprise either, because as CP's sports editor at the time wrote in a story that was featured across Canada, for Canadians of a certain age, that final game remains a burning memory.
Just to close off the indoor portion, a couple of words from a couple of the players. Paul, would you come up for just a minute? You know, we glory today as we look back into the win and everything. But I think, Paul, one thing we tend to forget maybe is that it wasn't easy, never mind on the ice, but you guys weren't the most popular team in the world when you left Canada to go over and play the 4 games in Russia.
Well, I have no recollection of that, Dick. No, it was a little disconcerting, and I think Phil, one of the greatest speeches I've ever heard, really put it on the line. And I think that was the thing that woke the Canadian people up, that, hey, these guys really are trying, and they're at, you know, we have a monumental opponent here. And it was the Canadian people that got behind us, and in particular, the 3,000 people that went with us to Russia. When we lost that first game in Russia and came off the ice to a standing ovation, I mean, the hair in the back of your neck went up. And so today, I thank every one of the Canadians that sent us telegrams, and especially those that were in Russia to support us.
When you went over there, did you think what was going to happen would change your life?
No, I was just along for the ride. I was just, you know, I was having the time of my life. I guess that obviously I would probably been an underdog to make the team, but in life they say, get around people that are better than you are, and you will learn a lot of things and probably elevate your game, and that certainly happened. And picked up a few garbage goals here that other guys did a lot of work on, and have been riding that for 28 years.
I've never heard it called garbage. Thank you, Paul. Come on up here, Phil. You don't have to make the same kind of a speech that you made in Vancouver that night. But, Phil, I just, you know, you look, this is 28 years now, and here we are, and it is still
You haven't
so
changed
much
a day.
Well, thank you. It's all the makeup that they put on.
The lying bugger that I am. No.
Would you ever have thought that it would have lasted the impact and the image this long?
Well, to tell you the truth, Dick, in the beginning, I think when we first got back, it was like we were really glad it was over. At least I was, and I know my brother Tony was. And I know I got landed here in Toronto, and the next day I was back in Boston. I was on the ice, and I think we played a preseason game the following night. And in being in the United States, you sort of forgot, and you didn't really get all the things that were happening, you know. And I sort of like said, well, it's over. I think let's forget about it and just get it on with the rest of our lives. But to tell you the truth, I was really wrong in that, because this was a special, special thing. And it wasn't only a special thing for, I think, this country. I think it was a special thing for us guys, the guys that played together and went through some really tough times. And I remember very vividly, after that series for years, going against a face-off against Peter Mahovlich or Bobby Clark or what have you, and this little silly grin coming out, you know, knowing that we went through hell together, and that's what we felt like. And for me, it was just a tremendous, tremendous thing. And to get back involved with this thing, of which I am really sorry I didn't earlier, is really, really thrilling. And for us to be having this plaque out here for us, and all of the guys are terrific. And if you wouldn't mind, there are a few guys like Bobby Orr, who was injured, couldn't play. Brad Park's not here. Vic Hadfield, Wayne Cashman, Mickey Redmond, Guy Lapointe, Bobby Clark, as I mentioned, Dale Talon, Gilbert Perreault, Marcel Dion, and I'd like to introduce the families of Billy Goldsworthy. This is his daughter Tammy and her wife, her husband, and the baby. And the other family, Gary Bergman, who Bergie was maybe the most well-liked guy of all the guys on the team. I don't know, there was just something about Bergie, with his pumpkin head and face and what have you. I don't know. There was just something about him. He looked like Elmer Fudd, but he was only 28 years old. You know, it was unbelievable. But his family is also here, and please forgive me. I remember Gary. Gary, would you stand up, please, and introduce your brother and your sister? Just yell it out, please. Stand up. Brandy and Blake. Brandy and Blake.
My father was a lifetime hockey coach in the National Hockey League, and he always used to say that it is tougher to coach a good team / great team than it is to coach a so-so team. But when you get together a team that is made up totally of stars, it has to be one heck of a difficult job to keep things on track. And even more so with what Team Canada and everybody associated with it had to put up with during 1972, especially when they got overseas to Moscow. One guy pulled it all together, and it resulted in the victory, and he deserves all the credit that he has always received. He is a member of the Hockey Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, the head coach of Team Canada 72, Harry Sinden. He went on to a fine career as a coach, manager, executive in the National Hockey League and elsewhere. The assistant coach of Team Canada 72, John Ferguson.
You want to read what's on the plaque?
I'll call on number 3, Pat Stapleton. Pat. Number 1, he was with the Boston Bruins, Ed Johnston. He played in all 8 games of the 1972 series. He was a Toronto Maple Leaf through and through, Ron Ellis. And a right wing, and a fellow who scored a very big goal for Canada in Game 7 in Moscow, number 8, Rod Gilbert. From the Chicago Blackhawks, Dennis Hall. From the New York Rangers, the left winger, number 11, Vic Hadfield. The famous picture of Yvan Cournoyer and Paul Henderson together when the goal went in will live in our memories forever. Number 12, from the Montreal Canadiens, Yvan Cournoyer. And number 15, Red Berenson. Number 16, Rod Sealing. A terrific hockey player with the Blackhawks and, of course, with Team Canada 72, Bill White, number 17. And that brilliant shorthanded goal that's been replayed and replayed and should be replayed more often was scored by number 20 on Team Canada, Peter Mahovlich. Jean-Paul Parisi. Number 23 on Team Canada 72, Serge Savard. Number 26 on Team Canada, Don Orey. And number 29, who else? Ken Dryden. Number 35, Hall of Famer Tony Esposito. Number 36, Richard Martin. Number 37, Jocelyn Gavramont. 'N' 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 ' And a Maple Leaf on defense, number 38, Brian Glennie. From the Chicago Blackhawks, number 21, Stan Mikita. Number 18, Jean Rattel. 8 games, 7 goals, 3 assists, 3 game winners, and instant recognition as a lifetime legend in Canadian sport. Number 19, Paul Henderson. The team captain of Team Canada 72, number 7, Phil Esposito.
On behalf of the team and our families, I'd like to thank the Canadian press. Believe it or not, Phil Esposito is thanking the press.
Yes, right here.
Mr. Esposito, as the ICE leader of the team, what kind of pressure were you feeling after, obviously, the game in Vancouver, and as you were preparing to go overseas? What kind of thoughts were going through your mind as being a good leader to communicate to the team?
Well, he asked what kind of pressure, what kind of thoughts were going through my mind as we went overseas. Look, I often said, my dad used to say this all the time, you know, son, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink the water. And I never thought about that as a leadership thing. I mean, and I can tell you this, and he was one of them. And I remember after the first game in Russia, there was Paul, myself, and maybe 3 or 4 other guys saying, I don't think we're going to lose again. I really don't believe we're going to lose this thing, and we're going to win it. And we had the confidence of that. Look, what happened in Vancouver was I got picked the star. And to tell you the truth, I was really tired of the booing. And because here we were giving up our summers, giving up everything that we had. We didn't know from this. And I remember saying to Paul as I'm going out, I said, I'm going to give somebody a piece of my mind today. And I really never knew what I said until 1982 was when we had our first reunion in 10 years. When I came up and I saw the tape and I went, and I got a little embarrassed by it. And I still do when I watch it. Because if you think about it, I think I repeated, I really believe, I sound like Elmer Fudd for crying out loud.
He was the undisputed leader on the team, on and off the ice. And I would say to you today, the finest period of hockey ever played by a hockey player was the third period of the last game in Moscow. This man scored the first goal and he set up the other 2. I think it was the finest period of hockey ever played. And you see, that's what leadership is all about. Leadership goes out, yeah, you can talk it, but you make it happen. He made it happen. It wasn't until we got back, and then it was probably, I would say none of us even knew it at that time. And it wasn't until years later, I would say the last 4 or 5 years, maybe because of the end of the millennium, like I'm recognized more today. I mean, people come up to me, I can't go into a restaurant, I can't do anything anymore, where I would say 5 or 6 years after the series, I could probably move around fairly significantly. And so it's gained actually, it's gained momentum. And I guess as we look back, and now the team of the century, the sports moment of the century, not all bad. Not all bad. That's wild, man. Yeah.
You have to understand, it wasn't a fun time. Phil talked about it being a war over there. It was a war, and we came back emotionally and mentally drained, and it was a tough time recovering. The one good thing about it, we had some comrades in arms here that we've a lifelong bond with, but coming out of there, we would never think about that thing. We just want to get out of there.
Dick, I'm going to make a statement here that the reason that I really believe that we won, and we did come back in Russia, it's basically because the type of character of the players that were on this team. So all the people that you've honored here today played a role, and a very important role. Thanks for being here, guys. You know it. Thank you very much. It means a lot to us. Just to share with you what Jean-Paul and I were with Ivan, and as you know, between the 3 of us, we won 10 Stanley Cups, you know. and Yvonne won 10. So, when you mentioned the Stanley Cup before, we never had the highs of having played for the Canadians or even for the Maple Leafs, or, you know, there's only a few teams that won the Stanley Cups in our years, right, JP?
During 13 years, my 13 years, three teams won the Stanley Cup.
So,
Yeah.
to answer the question, when we found out that we had a chance to represent our country and to play for Team Canada and to have this kind of challenge and to play with all the best players in the world, I was thrilled.
What I remember really about the forum was just that sense of sheer electricity and of this atmosphere that was just, it was the inside of a balloon, and the feeling was just pushing against the insides, stretching it, sort of tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, just ready to explode. And I mean, I had been in the forum many times, and where you could feel the building and feel everything inside that building, and I don't remember it feeling quite the way it did. And so no matter what the other anticipation had been in the previous month of how this was going to be easy and a lark and all the rest of it, once game time started to approach, the sense of enormity, the sense of importance, the sense of excitement just started to go, and I mean, you can tell it in that image, of the, and I remember, Phil Esposito describing that opening ceremonial face-off, and where he, as he said, he had to win that face-off. Ceremonial face-offs are not face-offs to be won. I mean, the dignitary drops the puck pretty much sits there, one of the captains picks it up, hands it to the dignitary, they shake hands, and that's the end of it. Well, Phil Esposito is there in that face-off circle as if there's 5 seconds to go, protecting a 1-goal lead, and it's in the circle nearest his net. I mean, it's a face-off he has to win. Now, that's not Phil unless the moment, generates that kind of Phil. And so no matter what Phil was feeling in the month before, that's what he was feeling, and that's what the rest of us were feeling at that moment.
Now there was a nervous time. There was a nervous time, I tell you. During the national anthem, I leaned over to Brad and I said, Brad, I think I just wet my pants. I mean, it was awesome. All of a sudden you stood there and I was talking to myself and I said, what is a kid from the Thistle Rink in Kenora, Ontario doing here? I mean, I was in awe, when you realized that the whole world was watching it. It was a pretty awesome thing.
I think people, today it's easy to forget that back in 1972 we still had a Cold War going on, and a lot of people, certainly I'm one of them, this was a battle between our way of life and their way of life, and we know, having been in international hockey before, knew how they portrayed it, and every time they won it was a victory for their system over our system. And so we would get into that game, and that first period things started off going very well, and we're hitting, and I'm included, everything that is red that moves, we hit. The problem is we weren't in game shape. We were a long ways from game shape, I suppose, what they were. And by the second period, when we can hardly move, and I still can see Harmeloff coming by and just flying by, and it's like waving the flag, saying, "Honk, honk!" You went through a red light, but they had that game conditioning. We didn't, and until we got that, it was difficult. And by then we knew it, that we weren't in the condition we needed to be to play a quality team.
Is there a winner or a loser in that series? The winner is society. Our society against theirs. That's what I believe. And that's what drove me. Not country, not hockey. because those guys were as professional as we were. I don't give a damn what they say. They were more professional than we were. Their whole life was that, even though they were in the Army.
The frustration was coming out, and there's no doubt about it that we realized that the Russians were a good team. They played together for many years. They were young. I was 32. I think the average age of the Russians might have been 24 or 25. I'm not quite sure, but some of their top players were only 21 years old, 22. And like Karlamov, 24 maybe. He's been in Olympic competition, played against some NHL hockey players, feels he's good as anybody. And it showed. They came and made a very good impression.
We start the game, boom, we get a goal. Within 2.5 minutes, we're up 2-0. Oh man, this is a cakewalk. Gary Bergman, my defense partner, we finished out the first period. It's 2-2. So we come off the ice and we're sitting there, and he turns to me and he says, "What do you think?" I says, "We're in trouble." He says, "Yeah, they're coming at us in waves." I said, "Are they ever? These guys are in shape. They are coming at us. We're in trouble."
It was complete shock to everyone across Canada. I'm sure the fans were shocked. We were completely shocked as players. We were caught off guard. It was not a good night. I don't think many of us slept very well. We all of a sudden had a reality check. Game one is over. We got blown out. What do we do from here? And I even remember Wayne Cashman walked into the room when that game was over. He wasn't playing that night. He walked into the room, and I think Phil was fairly close to me, and he walked in, and Phil's eyes met his, and I remember Phil saying, "We got problems. We got troubles." Like, we knew now what was ahead of us. We knew we got ourselves into something here that could turn out to be not the way we envisioned it. And I think it all started to set in, and as the night went on and the next day, we all realized that already we're behind the 8 ball and we got a long way to go. And we also realized how important Game 2 was. Game 2 became critical.
I remember it was so hot in the garden. There was no air conditioning in the garden. I don't think they have air conditioning now, but 90, 95 degrees, and it was very, very difficult. But everybody worked real hard. We had a problem. Our major problem was everybody was telling us that we were going to beat them in 8 games. We worked hard, but we would have worked harder knowing that we could be beat. In hockey, you have to be scared of losing.
I think the second game in Toronto and the practice the day before, this lark-like attitude disappeared, and the intensity level was really high in that practice in Maple Leaf Gardens. And we actually, some of us sort of played like in the inner squad or the practice that we had. Some of us sort of tried to imitate the Russian style of play, you know, with the sticks and, you know, the spearing and all of that, so that the guys would be ready for that tactic. And I think the second game in Toronto, I think Harry Sinden, maybe one of the best coaching jobs ever in hockey, for Canada to lose that first game in Montreal so badly and to come back and win that game in Toronto. I thought that was unbelievable what Harry Sinden did.
The Toronto game was a tremendous effort. I mean, it was by the team. It was pick yourself up off the floor. I mean, we have to carry out what we decided would be the best chance to win the game. We didn't deviate from it. I didn't mean to say that we were dominant in the game, but we were at least in as much control for as many minutes as they were. And we ended up getting a big break when Peter Mihalovic scored a shorthanded goal. I mean, a break. It was a great play by a it exemplified and illustrated the will of a North American player to do something individually, to pick his team up. It was a great goal. But that game and the first game in Moscow, which we lost, I think were the two best games the team played.
I think the determining factor of why we won is not because of the characters on our team, but because of the character we had on the team. And that was the thing. We had a lot of players that, as individuals, were willing to sacrifice in games to win hockey games. And sacrifice not for the system, but for their teammates. And that's what we were willing to do.
You know, you're scared as hell, obviously. You've been embarrassed, and now you know the opposition is really, really good. And I think the great thing about a National Hockey League player is that he can make adjustments, and he can be coached to play the game differently and make the adjustments that are necessary for him to be able to compete. And I think the real reason we ended up winning the series and ended up getting back into it in Canada was because of Sinden and the coaching staff. They made the changes in our lineup, and they made the changes in our game plan that at least gave us a chance to compete at that level till we got our conditioning and got our whole group together properly.
We could come back, we could compete against them. We felt our skill level was just as good, but we knew we had some things to our advantage. We knew the Canadians have emotion, part of their game that they can bring out, and the Russians didn't seem to have that. They played like a machine. There was no emotion ever showed, and we felt if we could get on one of those emotional rollers that happens to teams in the playoffs in Canada with guys that all been part of and involved in it, that'd be a big benefit for us. But the first thing we had to concentrate on was our conditioning.
Sport is a wonderful game if you win, and it is. I mean, it's terrible when you don't win, and it's even worse when you're expected to win and expected to do well and you're not doing well. That adds to the frustration and everything. And thank goodness we had an Italian guy with sweat running down his face, and then just, Phil puts it on the line and he's poured out his heart, and boy, that woke Canadians up big time.
Toronto was fine because we won. But after that first period, people were booing the heck out of us. If it wasn't for Tony in that first period in Toronto, we would have been blown out. But we won that game. And then it went to Winnipeg. And we weren't in condition. I don't care what everybody says. We weren't in good shape. We weren't. And there's no doubt, even though I thought the last 4 or 5 days we tried really hard to work to get into it. I remember Ferguson, just because I was on Fergie's team, and he was just like, "Come on, you big stiff, let's go." And then he would come to me after, going, "Way to work." And that made me feel good, because I never worked that hard in my life.